What's on, where, and when. It's the Talk of Nelson. NBS Talk Nelson.
To me, banking for life means coming into the branch and always feeling welcome.
Being able to pick up the phone, knowing who you're talking to at the end of it.
The flexibility with banking options.
Having absolute faith in the people you're dealing with.
The Mako Rugby Roundup.
Welcome to the Mako Rugby Roundup, episode 6, coming to you from the Turf Hotel. Thanks to Stan and the team for hosting us. Welcome back, Les.
Looking forward to the show.
Showing the Korean national jersey today, is that?
I thought I'd wear the Korean national
Yeah.
jersey, mate. And
You spent some time that way?
yeah, I did, and got involved with helping with some sponsorship and whatnot with the Korean Rugby Union.
Oh, wow.
And their then principal sponsor, Macquarie Bank. So, yeah, it was a fun time.
Let's check out what's happening at the Turf Hotel this weekend. And Thursday night, it's Jam Night, 8 till 11. On Friday, Kick, 9 till 8. And then on Saturday, it's Hysteria, 9 till 8. And, of course, on Sunday, it's the Mega Meat Raffle, $2,100. Also, must point out that every week they have poker nights. It's Monday and Wednesdays at the Turf Hotel and Thursday at the Bachelor. It's 3 nights a week. You can come along. Registration's at 6:30 and the game starts at 7 o'clock. Very popular, the old poker nights. We must give a shout out to Warren Cairns, who is with the Central Rugby Football Club. He's our development officer. And we actually caught up with Warren via Zoom, and we started by asking him about where it all started for him in rugby.
I was born in Invercargill, played my first game of rugby in Central Otago in a place called Middlemarch when I was, but he must have been 6 or 7, but moved up to this region when I was, I think, 8 years old. So I'm pretty much been a Marlborough man all that time, apart from a bit of a stint overseas for 5 years, doing a wee bit of a OE and playing a bit of rugby in a couple of different countries. But,
okay, so as far as, obviously younger days, you're a Stag, but then you come up to the Red Devils territory, and you did you play school age then, or was it mainly for club?
I did play for, I think, St Mary's School and then college as well. But then I joined the Central Club when I was about 15 or 16.
So was that first 15 Marlborough boys, was it?
No, I'd left school by that stage. I'd left school when I was still 15 and had an apprenticeship.
Right.
So I then went and played for the Central Club, and we had a very good under-19 team, one that Wayne Young and Nathan Gill and guys like that were involved in, and that really kicked off the love of rugby. And then we flowed through to seniors and other stuff as well. So
yeah, that was the thing of those days. When I went to school, as soon as my mates turned 15, they were out of there, and they're all off doing apprenticeships. So you don't get that so much now, do you?
No, most of them getting apprenticeships seem to be 18 or 19 when they leave school. But I was 2 weeks before I was 16 back in the 80s. So it was a little bit early then, but it's certainly a lot later now, it seems like, the way they talk.
There were some, late school leavers because they kept coming back to play for Nelson College. They were playing quadrangular rugby. So I think there was they were still there 3 years after they should have been. But of course, in those days, college rugby was playing senior B rugby, senior rugby. There wasn't the secondary school competition. There was quadrangular tournament. So you went quite early into the club realms, and by the sounds of it, Centrals was always your club. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Haven't played for any other club here, so that has been the case, especially since from the early teenage years. Yeah, So
what position were you, Warren?
I was fullback and a little bit of first 5-10 as well, but predominantly fullback. I would have.
Oh, so you got sometimes you played next to Wayne.
Yeah, a few times on a few occasions. Yeah.
Did he give you the ball or?
Oh, he did. Round my knees, up above. No, he was a very good passer. He was a very accurate passer in those days.
Right, but most of the time you were 15 at the back, so happening to tidy up the mess, but also able to find a gap or two?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. I was a pretty skinny white boy back then, about 70-odd kg. So, yeah, I had to have something.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, a wee bit of pace. That's probably why you end up with the bigger numbers on you.
Yeah. And rumour has it that you wore the red jersey at times, so you did represent Marlborough.
Yeah, I was at 92. I think I played my first game through till 95. And my first game was against Otago B. But that Otago B team, or an Otago 15, had Josh Cronfeld and Arthur Stone playing in it.
Oh, geez,
so that was quite prominent, really, and a few good Otago players. So it was better than a B team, but certainly not their A side, you know. So, but yeah, that was.
And I might not know the names, but can you give us some of the names that were in that side? You said in the 90s.
Yeah, Frank Marfell was still playing then, and Paul Phillips. Singer Roger Burrows, good mate. Wayne Young was there. Craig Forsyth as well, who played a lot for Marlborough. Matty Kerr, who played 100 games as well. He was in that team. It's a few that come to mind.
And so how would they play their representative rugby then? Were you in a particular division, or was it just representative provincial clashes?
That game against Otago was a warm-up game, but we were in the NPC then. We were in third division, vying to get out of it, to get up where Nelson were the year previous and that sort of thing. We still had the Seddon Shield games as well, where they were hotly contested against the West Coast, Buller and Nelson, of course, which was always the big one. So
yeah, I've heard some stories. I've spoken to some of the Nelson guys back then about those trips down to Buller, and geez, rough days back then.
Yeah. Well, I only remember once going down there, actually only as a manager. I never went down there as a player, but certainly saw Buller and West Coast, and everyone came up. Marlborough had a great stint in the 80s, late 80s, where they held on to it for, I can't remember how many years. It was a very long time. And there were some good challenges in those days, some genuine hard challenges, yeah.
So in your playing days, is there anything in particular that stood out for you guys?
That first game certainly stood out. The trips away were great. Back in them days, you'd play a midweek game and then a Saturday game on a, I remember going up and playing Thames Valley on a Wednesday and East Coast on a Saturday or something like that.
Oh,
That's just the way they did it back then, yeah. And the NPC, I suppose, was quite condensed. Then they did change it to a weekly thing. But we got to play in a Shield Challenge in 95 against Canterbury on Lancaster Park.
Oh,
and that was probably the highlight and that was, I think, 3 weeks after the 95 World Cup final. And the 3 All Blacks for Canterbury, Mertens, Richard Lowe and Mike Brewer played in that game, which you wouldn't see now after a World Cup final, but it just shows you that was just wonderful to play there in front of a hell of a big crowd. And yes, just great atmosphere, Can
you remember your opposition fullback?
Yeah, I had a beer with him, actually, and met up with him later on. He was a guy called Simon Forrest.
Oh, right.
And he made a point in the aftermatch of coming up to his opposition, and he was a really good fellow. Oh. I think he is married to Anna Simsick, who's the swimmer at the time.
Oh, wow.
But no, a really good fellow, and just a good occasion to play that game.
I mean, if we're talking a little bit about history, and it obviously wasn't your time period, but obviously the Ramphilly Shield days in the 70s, but, I haven't really spoken to someone from Marlborough once the Mako took that shield, and I guess at some point Marlborough would have been saying to themselves, geez, it'd be nice to have a crack one day and get it back. And that dream came true. What was that atmosphere like when the guys brought a match to Lansdowne Park and, put the shield up and all of Marlborough came out to support them? What was that atmosphere like? Oh,
it's I've been looking at games. I was a ball boy in 81, 82, those sort of times, and I've never seen anything like it at Lansdowne Park. We used to get that sort of thing when touring international teams came, like France played here a couple of times, Scotland, back in the pre-professional era days, and they were big occasions, but Lansdowne Park's never been sold out in its history, despite what some people may think, and it was a sellout that day, and it was a sellout a few days beforehand, so the capacity's down a little bit, maybe. I think it was 8,000 was the sort of figure I've heard, but it was just wonderful, absolutely brilliant to see the stands full, and the game itself and the day was just a wonderful, really good sunny day, and the game was great. So it was just a good ad for rugby all round for the province.
Was there any personalities or players who were in that 70s side there for the occasion? Was there any of that going on, or?
Yeah, well, as I understand it, they had a reception at Seymour Square in Blenheim here, and they had who was available of that 73 team.
Oh, wow.
Which it seemed like half of them. Yeah, I remember Quinton and a few of the local-based boys that brought the shield to them, and they must have had a meeting and a social occasion afterwards, from what I can gather. So, yeah, that would have been special. I didn't get down there for that, but that was I think that was a welcoming of the shield to Marlborough sort of thing again. So,
well, of course, for Nelson, it was the first time we've ever held the shield, but
yes.
of course, Marlborough already held it. So to see it return to the region, just fantastic, and the opportunity to actually defend it at Lansdowne Park, which is just absolutely incredible, fantastic atmosphere.
Yeah, and it was a shame a few years earlier when Kieran Kane was coaching the team and we were in really good form. We just never seemed to get a challenge. It was just timing, the bad luck, you're looking at the draw. We had a team capable of winning it, never got a crack at it.
No.
And I wouldn't say it was an upset when we did, but it wasn't a game that where we took it off Hawke's Bay that we were highly confident of winning. It was one of those ones that we were capable of winning, but it was just wonderful, the whole occasion up there to take it off them,
That's right. And we'd had another crack against them, and they're pretty hard to beat at home. So to be able to do that, it was just fantastic. Hey, so after your representative days, what happened after that? Obviously, you've got a role now with Central, but can you tell us about, post-playing days and getting involved in the more administration part of the game or development of the game? How did that come about?
Yeah, I suppose I've been, since the 90s, I've been on the Central Committee as such. So it's probably getting up to 30 years. I would have been there, a 5-year stint overseas, but so 25 years of just being around the club and filling a number of roles, as a lot of people do, from bar manager to secretary to on the committee. I've managed teams as well, premier teams for a number of years. So it's just something I really enjoy, and being part of it. And different people in clubs have different skills, and finding the job for them so they can feel part of it is part of the job, really, of a good, successful club. And it just helps the whole community and the spirit of the whole club, I reckon.
I mean, from the outside, it seems that Central's got a pretty good support base, and the players really enjoy being part of the club, and there seems to be good support around everyone.
Yeah, there is. We, especially now at the top level, we're the only team in the Tasman Trophy grade as such, but we do get good crowd support. We certainly get really good sponsorship support as well. And to me, that one of the true tests of your club spirit is how good your after matches are, and the players enjoying themselves afterwards there, and supporting the pub they go to afterwards, and all those sort of things all lie into it. And we're certainly ticking that box this season. So it's and that's with a number of new players as well that we've turned over in both teams, really.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that before we talk about your role, the senior side at the moment. So great success the last couple of years, and probably a few clubs actually looking at rebuilding. And early on in the season, it kind of felt like, maybe Central is missing a few, and they are in a rebuilding stage. But then their away form has been incredible. They bounced back to have some big wins. And then we thought, geez, watch out for them at home. And then they get tipped up at Central, who, most of the time Central have been the form team, but they've had a couple of tip-ups too. And if you look at Kahurangi, who are rebuilding, they've had some losses, certainly, but then, they've had a couple of good results. So it's been a real mix. But tell us about the Central side at the moment.
Yeah, it is young, definitely younger than we had a very good nucleus for a bunch of years that won it 2 years in a row, and then lost that third one to Kahurangi last year. So there is a lot of young guys in the team this year, very talented, very good. And that probably explains the up and down. Some of them are only 18, 19 years old, but very good rugby players, and going to be extremely good in the future. So it's I think it's just finding your feet at that top level, producing it week in, week out, and just realising that it's another level of rugby from probably first 15 and the age group stuff that a lot of them might have played over the years. But certainly the experience factor, that's not here now. We did lose a number in the off season, and there's still a few there, but not as we had a lot of riches before that up until then. But
yeah, well, I mean, one learning curve is you're up at half time, and then the second half it opened up. So I guess they're the kind of things you learn from. But let's talk about the club's development. First of all, what do you see in the club with its riches at the moment from junior stocks, and then of course below Premier Division, you've got your senior rugby. How are things looking at the moment with Central?
Yeah, they are looking good, and it's sort of dawned on us. We just had our club day last weekend, and it was very successful, extremely successful. The 7 JAB teams all got to run out on Lansdowne Park number 1, so they all got to do what the big guys do. And from everyone I talked to, I reckon that was just brilliant. And Quinton McDonald had a lot to do with that, with his role at Tasman and allowing that to happen. And then it culminated in the 2 senior games, one at 1 o'clock and the Tasman Trophy game at 3 o'clock. So, yeah, the stocks are looking very good in JAB. I think we've gained a team from last year as well, which is always good. And there's really good organisation and enthusiasm for the for down at that level for the infrastructure side of it. So that's really pleasing as well. So
there's 4 women's teams in the region at the moment. Moutere women able to put one in, although at times I think they struggle with the travel and being able to put a squad together. Has there been any discussions around that? Are you supporting Moutere, or is there being talks about potentially trying to get a Central women's team together?
A few years ago, we had a team for a couple of years, and we have over time, but there just doesn't quite seem to be the players in the region. We'd love to have a women's team. It was really good when we did have one, but there's an under-18 college team that train on our grounds, and we have a bit to do with them. And that may turn into a second team in Marlborough, but we certainly would love one to come out of here. But from what you say, Moutere are just sort of struggling sometimes to get a side. I think they're okay at home. It's just the away games and the travel that is a real factor in the whole Tasman Trophy side of things that holds that back. But it's a shame, because I think 2 from this region would be a good growth point and a good feel, But it hasn't quite kicked on from the Women's World Cup victory that we'd all hoped for. We're all hoping there might just be a little bit of a shot of enthusiasm, but from what I can gather, there's a lot more girls playing at junior level and teenage level, but yet to see it come through to the senior level, which is something we'll be keeping an eye on.
And also, as soon as they turn 17, 18, they're off to university, aren't they? That's an issue that both regions have to contend with, the fact that youth talent often leaves the region. So, the good development, good pastures in the regions for development, but it kind of gets to that age where they leave us and off they go. Leading on to that, your role at the club is Club Development Officer. So can you tell us a little bit about that role and what it entails, and of course what you're hoping to achieve this year?
Yeah, well, the role is part development officer, really part operations manager. It pretty much encompasses everything with the day-to-day running of the club and interacting with the governance and the JB committee and the senior committee and basically just getting things done and that sort of thing. But it probably involves, the number one thing is just the resources of the club, just making sure that the uniforms, the gear, all those sort of things, the aftermatches are taken care of, the bars stocked. And, that's one thing. The second thing is our club rooms are quite popular for being hired out as well. We've got 3 dancing groups that use it for 4 days of the week as a regular gig. So just making sure that's clean and everything's on track for them. And also we hire it out a lot as well, because it's quite a big hall. It's in Blenheim. And people like it for birthday parties and 21st, that sort of thing. So, and it's a good revenue earner for us as well. So, but we're also quite keen to develop it a wee bit as well and just paint it. And it's a 1950s building originally, so it's got its challenges in that area. With an add-on in 1980 or 81, as I understand it. So, we've got to keep painting it, keeping it fresh and that sort of thing, as well as realising it's a rugby club that when the guys stay after the game occasionally and want to have a bit of a layer up and a few things like that, that it's that's what it's there for. So, but so far it's working really well as such.
And from a player's development point of view, what are you hoping to achieve? What are the challenges for you guys?
Well, I think the number one aim is to be very competitive in the Tasman Trophy grade, and I'd love to say keep winning it year on year. But we really want to be competitive there, and we want to create a good environment, get good coaches, get good bus trips, get good culture in place, so that all the young talent of the region at the moment wants to come and play Tasman Trophy and enjoy it and do it when they're younger and all that sort of thing. We'd love to see another team from Marlborough if that's possible, but it just doesn't quite look likely right now. But you never know what could happen in the next few years. But so, yeah, really the thing is just to get the culture right, get everything behind the scenes as good as we can, get good coaching or keep good coaching like we've got. We're really lucky to have two great coaches and that sort of thing. So we just want to keep that going and introduce the new players and keep them here and hopefully keep bringing the trophies home is a number one aim, really, you know.
And the age group and development players, see some exciting prospects coming through?
Yeah, well, over here it's pretty much college from under 15 right through to under 18. So we don't have our club stuff there. Although good interaction with one of our coaches is a PE teacher at Boys College. So generally all the first 15 talent and all that's still floating around Blenheim and Marlborough and Dunedin, the region we can get and be in touch with and give them a conduit to play Tasman Trophy and all those sort of things. So that's pretty much the development side of things there. But there is also closely working with the academy and keeping an eye on those players that come from the region and making sure they want to come back and play for us as well, eh?
Yeah, and the Marlborough boys doing well at the moment, and there's going to be the big clash against Nelson College on Sky TV not too far away. So
yeah, we're all looking forward to that.
It's going to be pretty exciting as well. Yeah.
That's always a good grudge match. It's very much always anticipated, well and truly here. So yeah, we've got high hopes for that one, and they're in good form too, the Falcons. So yeah, we've got our fingers crossed for a good one there. That's for sure.
All right. Well, hey, it must give a shout out to your business too. So in between times, you do electrical services, don't you, Warren?
Yeah, I'm an electrician as such. Yeah, so it's certainly a part-time gig being the club development officer, and it's a day a week or so, spread over the whole week. But yeah, the other 4 days of the week, I'm a sparky as such. So that's what I do.
Keeps you busy, that's for sure.
It certainly does. Yeah. No.
And Central Boys going over the hill to take on Karangi. Is that right?
That's right. This weekend, yes. So,
what they have a bit of a chat about the game against Marist, so they'll be pumped up for this one.
Yeah, yep. No, they'll certainly be looking to turn that result around. That was pretty much the chat Saturday night of let's do it better next week sort of thing, and very capable of bouncing back the team and playing well this weekend and getting itself back on track and staying high in the table and. It'd be nice to have a home semi-final. Really, that's probably our aim now. It really is. I haven't talked to the coaches about their goals, but that's where we want to be from now on. So,
you'd expect that. But what's quite interesting about the competition at the moment is just it could be anyone's. I mean, all teams are travelling pretty well, and of course, as they go into the second round, they all start peaking, and those that are building will shine through, and those that are struggling a bit, you'll probably see that table start to tell what the top four is going to be looking like. But Central have got some pretty good results there, so I'd imagine they'll be in the mix.
Yeah, and there's a few injuries as well to come back. So every club's got that. We're not alone with that one. But yeah, we're looking forward to getting the top team out there and just so the coaches have the best players to pick from. And looking forward to having a good back end of the last 4 games of the round robin, and hopefully we can get ourselves high up the table and do as well as we can. Yeah,
good stuff. Hey, look, absolute pleasure having a chat to you, Warren. Thanks for your time, mate. I know you're a busy man, but it's good to get some insights into how the clubs operate and the faces behind the operation of these clubs, and keep up the good work. People seem to thoroughly enjoy being part of Central, and it's obviously the atmosphere that you've all built there.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chris. Yeah, it has been built over a number of years. It used to be based on a social side of things, but go back to the 80s. But since then, we've sort of had a bit of success in bits and pieces. So we're sort of keen to mix the two together, really, if you know what I mean. But that's the essence of most rugby clubs in New Zealand, I think, is the social is not as important, but it's certainly an important aspect of getting the job done on the field, eh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's having good times with great mates. That's what it's about.
Couldn't agree more, Chris.
All right, Warren, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time and all the best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, Chris. My pleasure, mate. Cheers. Bye.
That was Warren Cairns from the Central Rugby Football Club, who's their development officer. All right, Les, well, let's get into it. The club rugby update and women's senior rugby. It's the Stuff Tasman Trophy and some results. Waimea women 25 over Kararangi women 36. So reasonably close score there. We thought it might be a good clash, but Kararangi, they're just showing their form at the moment.
They followed up their impressive win against Marist with another win against Waimea women. So, so this Kararangi side already 2 rounds in, hot favourites.
Yeah.
But, the Waimea women will continue to improve.
And a default on Saturday with Te Hunanui, is that right, with Motori?
Yeah, with Motori couldn't get over. They were keen to, I know that midweek, but I guess they just didn't get the numbers to be able to come across the Whangamoa. So that's a default to the Marist women. The Marist women have been able to put a full team together. They were really looking forward to this, getting back on the horse. But they'll take the points. And then, of course, what we have to hope for is that Motori at home will be able to put a team together to play Kararangi this weekend.
Yeah. Now, just notice there, default score is 50-0. Is that right?
Yeah. It's 50 points and a bonus point win. So,
geez, they hammer you, don't they?
Well, yeah. And deservedly so, if you think about it. But everyone gets prepared for these things. No one wants defaults, but we are also understanding. This is tough times for clubs, especially in the women's division, to make sure they can get enough players to be able to bring a busload over the hill.
Okay, let's look at the fixtures for this weekend. 1:15 kickoff on Saturday, Trafalgar Park, Marist women taking on Waimea women. So this will be another good match, won't it?
Yes, it will be. It's the first game on Trafalgar Park as part of the Club Day celebrations for Marist. So, a nice time, a good park, and they'll have a full squad. Waimea will have a full squad. Mm-hmm. It'll be a top game. And I think this is sort of where both teams will get a real test as to where they stand vis-a-vis taking on Kararangi.
And nice to be able to play on Trafalgar Park, that's for sure. Rua Park, and it's the Motori women. They're at home versus Kararangi, so they have to do the travel, and hopefully because they're at home, Motori will be able to get the side together.
Yeah, I'm hoping the same thing.
Yeah, but Kararangi on paper really should be rolling that out for another win.
Yes, I agree with that.
Senior men's rugby, Stuff Tasman Trophy, and the results just gone. And Waimea Old Boys did the job against Kararangi, 22-19. So,
a lot closer than I thought it would be.
Wasn't a battering, was it?
No, and it was 3 tries each. So a very only goal kicking the difference. So very even encounter. So Kararangi will be pleased that they narrowed that gap. On the improve, Waimea Old Boys just happy to take the 4 points.
Trafalgar Park and Nelson defeating Stoke 36-17. So they bounced back quite nicely, didn't they?
Yeah, after that loss to Central and losing the John Goodman Challenge Trophy, they did bounce back. And Stoke, of course, they'd be disappointed in this result. So this leaves them languishing in that 6th spot. So Stoke will be wanting to improve greatly on the weekend, but a very good win, bonus point win for Nelson.
And geez, here's us talking up Central at home. They've had some good results away. We know how strong they can be at Lansdowne Park, but Central 14, Marist 55. And so Central held the John Goodman Trophy, but now you've got a backlash.
Yeah, so it comes back to Trafalgar Park this weekend and gets played for against Stoke. So yeah, the trophy's doing a bit of travelling, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
As for the game, Marist played into with a very strong win in the first half, and we're losing 14-12 at half time.
Oh, wow.
So then I would imagine that the Lansdowne faithful would have been very, very excited about their prospects for the second half, but Marist scored early and then just carried on and scored 7 second half tries.
Jeez.
9 tries to 2 win, very, very comprehensive, and just some quality play.
Oh.
One player in particular, when you look at the highlights of the tries scored, and you want to check it out, there's a first 5 for Marist wearing a white headgear, Luke Kilworth. Just look at the way he ran that side around and the speed at which he played and ran. It was a very, very worthy performance from a terrific young man. Luke is a guy who played for Nelson College at a young age, took some time off the game, has come back, and he really flourished on the weekend.
Wow, fantastic. Let's look at the fixtures for this weekend. 3 o'clock kickoff, Trafalgar Park, Marist taking on Stoke. It is for the John Goodman Trophy, and you've got a club day, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. This is the finale to club day, so there'll be a big crowd there of the Marist faithful, and I do. I'm going to be biased here, but I do believe Marist will be strong enough to retain the trophy.
All right, Ghibli Park, Waimea Old Boys.
Chris, let's hope I'm not eating humble pie next week.
That's right. Well, there's always traditionally been good clashes, but on paper, the way the form's going, Marist travelling pretty well at the moment. Ghibli Park, Waimea Old Boys taking on Nelson, and that is for the Noel Barton Cup. And Nelson, they bounced back this weekend. They're travelling all right. Waimea Old Boys also travelling well. So, geez, another good game on paper.
Oh, without a doubt, the match of the round. The Noel Barton Cup is very important to both sides. They both want this trophy dearly. And I just think that the improvement Nelson are showing will mean that this will be a very strong test for Waimea Old Boys, who currently sit top equal on the ladder. This will be a great game to get to at Trafalgar Park.
Cook's Reserve and Kahurangi host Central. And the way Central are going at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if they tip them up at home, because we always go on about their home form, but their away form's been actually not too bad.
Look, they've beaten Nelson in Nelson, but then they lost their first home game last weekend, as we've talked about. But I expect that they will travel with a strong squad. But I'm like you. I kind of think that Kahurangi might take this opportunity to sneak a home win.
Good. Okay. It should be a good crowd there. And the feature match last week in the Motor World Marlborough Senior A was Awatiri Senior A versus Waitoi. And the result there, Waitoi doing it 46-21 at the Seddon Domain. So they'll be pretty rapt about that. And the feature this week is in the Car Company Nelson Division 2. It's a Country Cup fixture. Yep. And it is Wanderers, which we haven't actually talked about for quite a while. Obviously, Wanderers quite strong in Division 1, unable to get a Division 1 team together. But, they are in Division 2. It's always a good crowd on there, and they host Tākaka.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a great match.
Yeah, so Brightwater Domain's one of my favourite rugby grounds, and that's mainly because there's the club rooms right next door to the sideline.
Yeah, that's right.
And so after watching the rugby, you can get in there and get warm, and they just have an excellent club. Wanderers do. Tākaka, they're coming off a big win on the weekend against Nelson, and Tākaka travelling after a loss to Marist at home.
Yeah, right.
So it'll be a celebration for Wanderers, I think, on Brightwater Domain.
Yeah, but it will be certainly, there's always a good crowd out there. So shout out to both Tākaka and Wanderers. College rugby, the Miles Toyota First 15 Boys Championship and Premiership. And looking at the results in the Premiership, Marlborough Boys 47 over Shirley Boys 8. So Marlborough, geez, they're really showing their strength, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
We've talked this year as their year in terms of a very strong group of Year 13s. So, mate, they've got to be delighted with their start.
Also in the Premiership, Nelson College away to St Thomas's and doing it 41-26. So another comprehensive win.
Yes.
So you can see what's going to be building up. That game versus Nelson College and Marlborough, that's going to be
On Thursday.
absolute stormer. Okay, so in the championship, Waimea combined travelled to Christ College, took on their second 15, and geez, look at that score, 66-12, having a great one.
Yeah. That is comprehensive.
Yeah.
And pleasing for them.
So let's look at the fixtures coming up. Saturday 24th, it's all happening, and 11 o'clock kickoffs. Christchurch boys taking on Nelson College. So Nelson College got to travel away again. That'll be, geez, that's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, this will set the standards.
Yeah.
Set the scene for the competition. Look, I'll put my money on Nelson College. They're travelling well, and fingers crossed that they get a win up over Christchurch Boys High.
Marlborough Boys College at home against St Andrews College.
Yeah.
So haven't seen how St Andrews are travelling, but traditionally reasonably strong, aren't they?
Yes, Stack is a good side, but I'm supporting the local side here, Marlborough Boys College, to get up in this one.
And then Waimea combined, they travel away to take on Roncalli Oraki combined, first 15. So, geez, the way Waimea are travelling at the moment.
Let's put our money on three wins for the local colleges.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, travelling very well. Super Rugby Pacific, and let's look at the results on Friday. Hurricanes 24-20 over the Highlanders, and geez, a last-ditch try just to sneak that one through. So, we did pick the Hurricanes, but the Highlanders, obviously, it's still die now, and probably bitterly disappointed they weren't able to get that win.
Yeah, they played so well. They were competitive. One botch line out with a minute or two to go, and that put them under the pump and led to Roygaard scoring under the sticks and losing the game. This has kind of been the Highlanders' year. They've been in the frame in a number of games, and then just not finished off the victory. So, I think that's clearly them out of any playoffs. The Hurricanes, on the other hand, be delighted to just get the win, and keep their aspirations high.
And just when we think the Crusaders are slipping, and we talked about how tough it is away in New South Wales, they did it 48-33 against the Waratahs.
Yep. So it was a good performance. Some lovely rugby. Sevu Reece, of course, scored a try to make him the top try scorer in Super Rugby land. So overtaking TJ Perenara in those stakes. So a good win for Crusaders. Gets them back into the top 2, and it's all on.
It's all on.
And look at rounds to go.
Fijian drew a 38 over Western Force 7. So certainly suited their game playing at home, and they'll be wrapped with that, finally getting that win.
Yes, they will. And the Force opened the scoring, but were pretty hapless throughout.
And what a game, what an occasion in Auckland. Moana Pacifica 27 versus Blues 21. And, that's a big win for Moana Pacifica to tip over one of the major teams. That's a milestone, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It was the most remarkable game of rugby. Albany, 12,000 people went to North Harbour Stadium to watch this. And then, we witnessed arguably the best game of Super Rugby by an individual you could ever hope to see. And the passion that Ardie Savea brought to his side, and he just won that game for them on sheer will alone. He was amazing. Just all facets of the game. He shot it, including a third game in a row with a nice little touch with the foot and chase. And do you agree? It was just.
Oh yeah, look, I didn't get to see the whole game, but I certainly watched the highlights, and the commentators just couldn't stop talking about him. And I obviously saw, some of his plays, and that's just the mark of the man. it's been certainly his week, isn't it? Because he picks up Player of the Year for Super Rugby already.
Yes.
With Morgan not even in the, nothing to do with the finals yet. So just goes to show the measure of the man. Now there's calls for him to be captain of the All Blacks. And
I'm calling for it. Chris,
Yeah.
I think he's just an outstanding leader, and it's a new type of leadership. It's not the strong, silent, follow me type of stuff. There's real passion and energy. Yeah, it is follow me, but his example is massive, and I think it's contagious.
But I think Joe Smith pointed out, they interviewed Joe Smith during the week, and who's coached Ardie and been involved in the team, and sort of ran that past him, what his thoughts were, and he said, look, I don't think Ardie will want anything to do with that. Ardie is a man that will just come in and do for the team, and he'll do his work and he'll do his business, and he'll do it with enthusiasm, and that's how he'll lead. He certainly won't be pressuring to get the captaincy. So, just his presence alone, brings that passion. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
He's understated, off the field, but on the field he plays with that great passion. Yeah.
So another thing that struck me all throughout the post-match interviews, the use of the word faith. So this is very much a faith-based team. It's a Pacifica team, but they've all bought into faith that is not only a higher faith but also in each other.
Yeah.
And I thought that was stunning language that you don't often hear when it comes to rugby. As for where Ardie played, number 7. So I think not only is there a question, should he be captain, but should he be playing at 7 now that Sam Cane's gone?
Yeah.
And Wallace Satiti, can play at number 8.
Yes.
Find a big bruiser at number 6. Is Savea the right choice for number 7?
Well, I like that, and I've always been calling for that. But we needed a big number 8. I felt now we've got one, and that could be, a possibility. Tana Umanga, he was the one that went to Graham Henry and said, Graham, you're doing it wrong. With the Pacific Islanders, we they're shy. So if you're going to coach them, you've got to coach them in a way that they understand. And he basically turned around the way that Graham Henry dealt with Islander players, and there was the diet, there was the way you coach them. Tana Umanga has taken that understanding, that knowledge of those players, and he's brought them together, hasn't he? He hasn't always been able to do that during his coaching career, but certainly with this crowd, with the help of Ardie, I'm sure, he's really brought them together.
Yeah, Tana's grown as a coach. I think your summation is pretty fair. He's really grown as a coach with this team. There were always question marks when he was at the Blues and whatnot, but this team, they're responding to his coaching and they're playing some pretty... We talked about the flash that they would bring, right? Because they are an entertaining side versus the Dow win by 5 tries approach by the Blues. But the Blues got completely undone by the passion and flair of the Moana team. So, well coached, well led, lots to love. My second favourite team.
And look, who knows in the playoffs?
Yes.
It hasn't finished here.
I do hope that they make the 8. I do hope they make the 6.
Yeah.
Carry on. The last game of the round's almost an afterthought, really, isn't it, Chris?
Well, except to say that Brumbies, sitting at the top of the table. So have I got that right? Did my homework earlier? Yes, they are. They're sitting at the top of the table.
Wow.
So Brumbies 24 over the Queensland Reds 14. And again, Joe Smith, was asked, what do you think about the Brumbies? And he said, well, I think they've got the team to do it. If they've got their own style, they'll probably get a semi at home, probably the Hurricanes. They always seem to have to go over there. So they've got a very good chance of making it through to the finals, and you just don't know. Yep.
Yeah,
write them off at your peril.
Correct, and beating the Reds, who were the second best team, like that 24-14, is a terrific result for the Brumbies. So they're the best of the Aussie teams.
Let's look at the fixtures coming up for this weekend. On Friday, we got will be another good game. 7:05 Crusaders versus the Hollanders at home. You'd expect the Crusaders to win that, but the Hollanders don't like losing to Crusaders, do they?
No.
So even if it's just for pride, they'll want to pick that up. Queensland Reds at home to the Hurricanes. So, geez, they've got a tough run to the top six, the Hurricanes, haven't they? But you'd probably still favour the Hurricanes.
Yes, they'll have to be on their best behaviour over in Brisbane. But yes, I do pick them to win that.
And then you've got Saturday, the Chiefs versus Moana Pacifica. And who knows there? You'd fancy the Chiefs at home, but Moana Pacifica, the way they're going at the moment, you just never know, do you?
And a great matchup of two excellent loose forwards in Wallace Satiti and Ardie Savea.
That's right.
So that's going to be worth the price of admission alone. Look, great time, 7:00 Saturday for television watching. I think the Chiefs should prevail, but man, now that I've got a second favourite team in mind, I'm rooting for them.
Yeah, that's right. Western Force at home to New South Wales Waratahs. Couldn't pick that one actually because Western Force are a different team at home. So on paper, probably the Waratahs, but Western Force, you never know at home. So if we look at the standings, Brumbies, as we talked about at the top, followed by the Chiefs, then the Crusaders, Queensland Reds, Hurricanes, and in number 6 position, just above the Blues, Moana Pacifica, but still in it, probably the Blues, and that's about it. Waratahs, Force, Drua, and Hollanders, probably all out.
Yep, draw a line under 7th spot.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. All right, in the headlines, well, we've talked about it before. Ardie named as Super Rugby Pacific Player of the Year. Wallace Satiti extends contract with Chiefs and New Zealand Rugby through to 2027. So that's quite good news, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic news, and he does enjoy playing in the Chiefs camp. So that takes him through to the World Cup, which is awesome, and he'll be figuring in that.
Debate during the week, I heard on News Talk CB, Jason Pine, interviewed. Name escapes me, boxing promoter, but he ex-rugby league player. But he interviewed him about, basically it was about, the debate was about ticket prices for the All Blacks and how expensive it is to go to the rugby. And, what was everyone's thoughts on the pricing? Surprisingly, most people said, actually, if you go to a concert, you're still going to pay $150 to $180. Piney was sort of saying, what about the good old days? Everyone got to go and see a test. But I guess the argument is there weren't so many tests as there are now. We're kind of got a lot happening with rugby left, right and centre. Before you know it, there'll be All Black series and games coming out of our ears. So, and also the fact that even though we had record incomes with New Zealand Rugby, we've also had a loss, 97 million, I think might have been the figure. So that can't carry on. And this was the promoter's point, is that at some point rugby has to make a profit. They can't keep losing 100 million. You might have, I can't remember the figure that it was, 300 million in the bank, but soon that'll be 50 million in the bank if we keep going on. And so it is a prime occasion. It is an occasion where you probably can't go to the rugby every test. You've got to pick your games, and maybe that makes it more special because you got planes and accommodation and food. It can be an expensive exercise. And then he drops the bomb again. Is it time to let your players go overseas and be eligible for test rugby? They take sabbaticals at the moment. Players are going to keep, but if you're just on the fringe of the All Blacks, but potentially you could be, they want to go and make some money, and we're not potentially seeing the best All Black side that we can. Rugby League do it, South African Rugby do it. Obviously the European League, they all play pretty close to home. So, but it's big money. Is it time to make that call now?
Well, it is a debate that has been had. Razor Robertson was of the opinion that he should be able to pick his overseas-based players, and that's because he wanted Richie Mo'unga back.
That's right.
But he's changed his mind, and he's understood I guess, what he's been told by the powers that be at New Zealand Rugby, that our approach of giving guys sabbaticals allows them to go off and earn some good money, but to be able to play for the All Blacks, you have to be available by playing at home. And I kind of applaud that. I think it is the right way. I think it just means, though, that we might not win everything, but it keeps that value in the black jersey high.
His point was we can't afford to keep the players. The only time the All Blacks really make money is a Lions tour at home, or when they play in South Africa or England, or take the game to USA.
Yeah, but you fill up Eden Park. Eden Park sold out very quickly for the test this year. Maybe
South Africa's booked out.
Look, smarter people than me would have a different answer. But just speaking about it from a fan's point of view and wanting the best players who play for the All Blacks to be based in New Zealand, I think that's the way to go.
Well, it was interesting. One caller rang up, a woman rang up and said, the thing is, what I like about that policy, look, it made a lot of sense from a financial business point of view that we can't carry on the way we are because we won't have a New Zealand Rugby Union eventually, unless, even with the Silver Lake deal, that we can't keep losing 97 million a year, even with record income. But one thing that she did say, she says, I watched the All Whites and I didn't know any of them for the World Cup playoff. But when I watch a Will Jordan, I know who they are. In fact, I might even bump into them in the street, and so, we're invested in knowing who these players are. If they're continually playing overseas, we might get to the point, yes, we'll back the All Blacks, but who's that guy?
Yeah. I think that's a fair sentiment. And it's to my point. We understand that if a player chooses the black jersey over the dollars, then he is really committed to the All Black cause. And that to me is the sort of player I'd want to have on my side. And, there's guys on the fringes who will go overseas. Ricky Riccatelli's just decided that he won't play NBC or for the Blues, that he's going to go to France and make some good money. But he's probably about fifth in the order. If you really think that you're a quality player who can be an All Black, you'll stay.
Yeah. The other point he brought out was the pressure of rugby league, how they're extending to a 20 to 22 team league. I can't remember the figure that the All Blacks had in the bank in reserves, but NRL has 3 times that. They're now calling for a South Island team. That also came up during the week. And the discussion was the amount of player base in and around the South Island Christchurch, including the people that miss out in the North Island, would come down as well. So immense pressure.
Where have you fallen? Because you've listened to this debate in greater detail than I have. I wasn't across that discussion with, I think, Dean Lonergan, it must have been.
Dean Lonergan, that was the man.
And Jason Pine. Never heard the conversation. So having listened to both sides of the argument, where have you fallen on this?
Well, Piney was dead against it. He was 100% on you. But the way he was talking, just purely business and financials, and if you look at South Africa, I think that's the road we've got to go down.
South Africa's different. It's vertically aligned time-wise with Europe. We have a tougher road to hoe, as do the All Whites, by bringing European players back to New Zealand.
Well, it could be, some tests we won't have all our stars, but certainly for World Cup, and it probably happens a little bit now, but at some point we've got to stop losing 97 million.
I don't know if that's the playing thing. I don't know if it's. They can fill Eden Park. They can fill Chicago. They can fill Tokyo stadiums.
Yeah, but the money is in those tests, not Eden Park.
No,
that's what they're saying.
But they can fill it, and they charge, you said, $150, $180 a ticket. They do fill them. So the passion is still there to watch a genuine All Blacks team. Once you start having an All Blacks team where they don't play locally and they just pull back to be test mercenaries, I'm not sure the fans will really buy into that. On the other hand, New Zealand rugby has to have a strategy, right, to overcome making losses per year. And I think that really doesn't, the debt doesn't sit with the players, it sits with their inflated staff numbers, mate. They have so many people employed, and some of them on really huge money. Like a close mate of ours told me that there's at least 10 guys earning $500,000 in New Zealand rugby, and they are earning that money to manage people. So there are this payroll is huge. The women's rugby program, right, which doesn't bring in much revenue, has a huge staff number attached to it. So a good CEO and board will start looking at their revenue and their expenses, and the biggest expenses I would think would be in salaries and wages.
There we go.
Not the players' ones, though, but although there's a lot of blame to be put on New Zealand Rugby Players Association and what percentage they get for their players, but that's a whole nother debate.
It could go on. But anyway, it's a very interesting topic, and it keeps coming up.
Where do you stand on where...
Well, I agree that we've got to sort out our, our administration costs. You always got to look at that. But is that the future?
No, but would you love to see a team of players who are committed to New Zealand rugby, or a team where, you can go and play for the big bucks and then come back occasionally when required?
I think every other team in the world lets their players play overseas, and they can still compete at international level. And I think that quite possibly in the future of the game, with the way that it's going as a business and professionally, that's the road we're going to have to go down. If we want to keep them in rugby and not succumb to the money in rugby league, which is happening in the women's game, and more so with players out of Auckland.
Well, what I like about the women's model is they can play both codes.
Yes, they can. They can swap.
So, and there would have been nothing to stop Richie Mwanga taking a sabbatical and earning some big money and coming back. But he has just decided, right, that the money over for a long-term contract was more important to him than the black jersey. And he's made that decision, and I don't see why, unless he decides to come back to New Zealand, he should ever be picked.
He'll come back. Guarantee it. That it's letting him have 2 years off, and then they'll bring him straight back in.
He's not a 3-year contract.
Well, I reckon there'll be a deal in there.
Okay.
Unless someone else steps up, that's the other thing. You go away, you could lose your spot, and we do have the talent.
Absolutely, and this is the beauty of a couple of competitions. Obviously, the first 15 competition is always, throughout New Zealand, is always throwing up the next generation. We saw that with the under-20s. We're competitive at that age group. There is no shortage of players with talent, and I think as long as they keep their eye on NPC and continue to have that as a development competition, and don't let it go by the wayside, that also then allows the late maturing rugby player to shine and become All Blacks as well. So there's two paths that we've got that are very, very good assets, and that's the NPC and the first 15 comp.
Yeah, just got to turn the balance sheet around. So
I think
we'll see how that goes.
I think so.
And actually, on that note, what is interesting is that, and watch out, especially after another result on the weekend, USA Women's Rugby first ever professional contracts ahead of the 2025 World Cup. So USA going to become a professional side. Watch out, I say. France top players may. So there's actually a little bit of debate that's come up around the fact that with the French team and criticism that their top players may be missing out on coming to the New Zealand tour because of other commitments through professional rugby. There's now debate over there. Actually, we want to get those players released. So there's a bit of pressure.
I'm hearing that the players. Themselves saying we want to go on tour.
Yeah, right.
We want to tour New Zealand, and so there is going to be a bit of a turnaround in the strength of the French team to come here, which is a good thing. They should just bring down their stronger side and let it all get on. Yeah,
that's right. Black Ferns and Canada 27. Oh, geez, it was almost a tip up of like last year, and I don't think we particularly played badly, but geez, isn't Canada doing well and ranked second in the world?
Yeah, so they beat the Black Ferns last year.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of this game. I thought that they were going to do it again, but somehow the Black Ferns would find a way back in, and a last gasp try did that for them. They could have kicked the conversion to get the win, but I was actually thinking 27-all was a pretty decent result for both teams because they played with a lot of endeavour, a lot of passion. Over in Australia, the USA, the professional side went down to the Wallaroos, who gave them a beating. And I don't know if you noticed, but one of the USA midfielders got a red card, automatic red card, as said by the referee for a stamping incident. So get paid but play well, eh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But just shows the passion, there's passion in the game. All right, Les, well, final thoughts for you for this weekend?
Oh, look, I'd like us to get a good crowd to Club Day. So, the Club Days are an amazing thing for the volunteers of clubs. Our JAB and her chair, if you like, Tracy Marfell and her crew will be at Tahuna Nui from 8:30 in the morning, setting up, getting ready for the under sixes to play at 9:30, and then it goes right through age grade. And TRU, I have to say, do a marvelous job of getting all the teams onto to play at home. So every team in the Marist Club is playing at home. So you go to Tahuna Nui, you watch that until 1 o'clock, and then you head to Trafalgar Park and you watch the seniors run around. So a big shout out to all clubs who have club days, and it just showcases the passion of the volunteers within those organisations who keep rugby alive and thriving.
Absolutely. All right, good luck to the teams this weekend. I think it's going to be the weather forecast, but hopefully it'll be fine. Big thanks to Warren Cairns from Centrals. Great to hear about his background. Big thanks to Turf Hotel, proud venue sponsors. Where to listen? Well, you can catch us on NBS Talk Nelson, the website and social media, Spotify, YouTube, and Talk Nelson Digital Radio. Don't forget, if you want to get involved as either a guest or a sponsor, please get in touch with us. That's a wrap. We'll see you for the next episode and more of the Mako Rugby Roundup.
The Mako Rugby Roundup. What's on, where, and when. It's the Talk of Nelson. NBS Talk Nelson.